endless skies. Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained, I thrive, I thrive.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at Nomads 50 Plus. My name is Chris Kalaboukis, and today we have a special guest, Joanna Fulmer. Is that how you pronounce your name? Sorry. I should always ask you to pronounce your own name because I may get things incorrect. And tell us about how you jumped into the life of a nomad and what's passion.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, to be honest with you, that was why when I first kind of spoke to you, I was like, I'm not quite sure if I'm in this group, but I think I am in this group because I didn't
You
really
are. You
intend.
are.
I didn't really intend to be.
Well,
I
you're not
left
over
Australia.
50, right? You're definitely under 50, right? So you're not really
Yes,
in the
that's
over
true.
50
Well
category, right?
done. I left Australia about 18 months ago, and I left to go traveling, and I knew what I would be doing for 7 months. And then I really didn't know what was going to come afterwards. And
Hmm.
now it's been 18 months. So yeah, I kind of find myself in this space where I've become a nomad, trying to now find a way. I'm starting to create a business. So I'm learning all these new skills. So yeah, am I a digital nomad? I suppose I am. I'm not in my home and
That's
I'm not
right.
in my country. And I'm enjoying moving around and being somewhere other than, back there in my full-time job. So yeah.
Nice. So what made you want to jump into this? I'm curious.
Um, I've traveled a lot in my life. So all through my 20s, I traveled. You know, I was sort of 19, I think, when I very first went to India.
Hmm.
Um, and then I spent a lot of time in India, and then I ended up hearing about working opportunities in Japan. So all through my 20s, I lived in Asia pretty much. I mean,
Oh, nice.
we went over to Central America a little bit, but really mostly Asia and Japan. I lived in Japan for 5 years, pretty much all up.
Nice. How's your
Um,
Japanese?
はい、そうです。もう5年ぐらい勉強してから、
Oh, very
I can
good.
still
Very
speak.
good.
Still, I've still got it. It's got a bit rusty, but it's still there. So I kind of, so I did a lot of that in the 20, during my 20s. Then I went back to uni. And then I had a business with Vietnam. And then I went and I trained to be a teacher. I did my degree in anthropology because I
Mm,
love culture. I love
fascinating
history.
degree. I wish I could go back and do that myself. I would love to do
Yeah.
anthropology. That'd be
It was
fantastic.
an amazing, like I was 20, 27, 28, and I was sitting in Sri Lanka and I was studying another language. And I was just like, at that time in Sri Lanka, there was not many people there because the war was on. So people didn't
Mm.
really travel to Sri Lanka then. And we'd been going every year 'cause I was with my partner at the time was a surfer. So it was perfect. They just had the surf to themselves. But I got kind of sick of listening to, the perfect surf break and all of that kind the ongoing stories with surfers always looking for the
If you're not a
perfect wave.
surfer, it's hard to be part of that world, I guess, right?
I love watching it, but it kind of was like, for me. So my brain was kind of like, I need something more. So I ended up going back and doing a course, and then I started looking at university, and I went and did anthropology. And it was pure thirst for knowledge and understanding, and that was
Mm.
the absolute gift of doing that degree, and I was able to draw on, and I looked at Japanese culture as well, South African culture, and there was lots of different lenses. It was a fantastic degree. In fact, I'd like to do a master's in philosophy, but we'll
Yeah.
see. So
Well,
yeah, I
I
did
have a
that.
degree in philosophy actually, and I'd
Oh,
love
do
to do a degree.
you?
I would love to do a degree in anthropology as well, additional studies. It's totally
So we're
fascinating. I love that space. It's amazing.
It is. I love it. So I really sit in that humanities space. So I did my degree, and then I went traveling again. We had a business with Vietnam, and then there was the GFC, the big, the financial crash. Oh no, that
Hmm.
came after. Then we had the business, and then we saw that things were starting to change,
Were
and I
you
decided
traveling
to.
all this time when
No,
when you had
that
the
time
visit?
I was back in the UK. I went back to the UK to do my degree. And then we started traveling again. That was 2003. And then we had the business. And then I saw the economy wasn't good, and it was just before the financial crash in 2008. And I decided to train to become a teacher. And
Hmm.
I trained to become a teacher of religious studies and philosophy.
Ooh, fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, with an absolute passion, absolute passion. You know, it was moral philosophy and religious
Mm.
philosophy. Really deep
Oh,
arguments. Yeah,
that is
exactly.
great.
I just loved it. And teaching religion as well kind of fits in with that, that cultural component, because we would look at the six major faiths. And so teaching that to students, I just used to really love to engage them in the ideas of religion and culture and practices. So it really kind of really was, it brought together the things that I'd experienced in my life and what I'd also studied at university. So teaching it to students was just a joy for me. I absolutely loved that job.
Fantastic.
And then, yeah, it was amazing. And then we had the opportunity to emigrate to Australia. And I went to Australia, and I a different education system. I ended up teaching critical thinking, philosophy,
Still
history.
very important topics. Incredibly important.
Absolutely. Critical thinking is I believe one of the most important topics, especially now. Children and youngsters
Absolutely.
need
They should
to
teach
ask.
that they should teach that in elementary school, if not middle school.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. I
seriously.
completely agree. Like I always used to teach my son, he's now 19, and I always used to say to him, you ask why, who, where.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
always you question it.
Yeah. No, and
So,
I think I did critical thinking until I actually got to university. I'm like, this is
really,
crazy.
well, there's lots of things. I mean, coming from education, if you look at the education, what's in that space at the moment, it needs a serious overhaul, because there are
Absolutely.
so many components students are not taught, but also actually the system. It's an industrial model. We
Oh,
don't live in
exactly.
the era anymore.
The kids that are
So
being produced right now are not ready for the world of today. It's insane, unfortunately.
they're not. They need to innovate. They need to learn how to think outside the box. They need to learn how to ask questions. They need different types of skills, and the education system isn't able to give them that anymore. So that it needs to be revolutionized. I don't know who's going to have the will to do it, because I really don't believe that any government will have that political will to upend the system. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Maybe it'll
Everybody
happen
wants to
slowly.
keep things exactly the way they are, which is terrible for everybody. I don't think
No,
anybody
but
is winning here.
well, it's interesting because it fits into where you're at the moment with the nomad life. There is a massive shift going on in society at the moment,
Hmm.
huge shift. So many changes happening. And I guess that's where I kind of fit into it. So I was teaching philosophy and Japanese, and then I was teaching Spanish at the end. So I did all of these different things. And my son was about to graduate from high school. And I was just in this midlife point, and midlife and menopause and coming up to like 50, you start to ask the bigger questions about where you're
It
at.
sounded
What is it?
it sounded like you were happy doing what you were doing, though. I mean, you enjoyed
I
teaching what you
I
were teaching.
loved my job until COVID.
Ah,
Absolutely loved
that
my
was the
job.
big great disruptor, huh?
It changed it completely, because what I was running the languages program. So I had all the teachers, we had Chinese, Japanese, and Spanish, that the teachers that we had on the curriculum, but I also ran the international program. So in Australia, they run programs in the high schools where students can come from European countries, Brazil, South America, and they can come to the Australian schools for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, or a graduate program. So I used to oversee that program. We'd have these every 6 months, we'd have a big intake of young students from
Ah,
Italy and, Germany and Scandinavia and Brazil.
nice.
And it was wonderful. I absolutely adored it. And I'd take them we'd go out on trips, we'd go to, the islands near to us, and they'd get to experience like the dolphins that come in, and go out snorkeling and up to the Great Barrier Reef. It was a fantastic job. I absolutely
Wow.
loved it. There were so many components to it. Um, I worked with the
Th-
Confucius Society, so we had lots of Chinese cultural things going on, and
Oh
because of
my
the
God, that sounds
Japanese,
like a dream job.
you know what? It was. I honestly loved my job. I
Mm,
absolutely loved it. And I used to I was so thankful that I had this job that I absolutely adored. But COVID changed everything. And it
Mm,
wasn't just COVID, it was also the shift into midlife and menopause. And
right.
menopause for many women has a huge impact mentally, physically, emotionally.
Right.
And then you combine that with that point in life, that tipping point
Mm,
in midlife when you start to go, that's when those questions come in of what do I want? And you also start to see friends, family, there's illness and ill health. And,
yeah.
then you start to experience different shifts in what's going on around you. And I think for me, the question was, okay, life is short and this is not serving me any longer. And I want something different and I want to create and write a new chapter. And so for me and my default has always been travel. Travel's always been the space that I step into to kind of regroup, think about what I want, think about what my purposes are, what's my intention moving forward. But also all the joy it gives me.
Mm,
Travel brings so much into your life, so many different um the experiences, it builds your confidence, it's just joyful. I find it a joyful space to be in. I really do. So I packed up the house, and I left with a rucksack, and that was it,
wow.
and a new laptop.
It's
I
only a
did get a
digital
new
nomad. I
laptop, so
love it.
that was good.
This is really interesting because most people are running away from something, but it sounds as if you really enjoyed what you were doing. It's just that the job itself too, at the same time.
The job changed, but my son was leaving home. This is another one for many people in midlife, especially women,
Right.
empty nester.
Right.
Things shift and change. You don't have those responsibilities anymore. And it's a new space in which you can kind of go, well, hang on, I don't have those responsibilities anymore. And you start to change as a person, I think, as well. You start to
Right.
really, your wisdom really starts to kick in. You start to feel that you can really have confidence in your decisions and what you want and what you want to do with your life. And you also can start shifting that guilt and saying, well, actually, I'm not going to feel guilty about this anymore. I'm
Right.
going to do this for me. This is for me. So yeah, that's what I stepped into because I did enjoy it, but also it's a very stressful space to be into, be
Mm,
in. It was my nervous system was shot. You're constantly on adrenaline. There's always a time pressure. And it's funny because I'm like building this business at the moment. I've got lists and bits of paper, and I'm thinking, and it
self-inflicted
reminded me
time
of being.
pressure. This is
Yeah,
self-inflicted, so it's different. It's very different.
it's different. It's different. When you have a list, when you're at work and you're working for someone else and everything is accountability, which is a
Tell me
good thing
about it.
because you're always accountable. Um, but when you've got a list, I can remember being in my workspace and my heart would be racing because
Mm.
I would leave my laptop and come back and there would be 20, 30 emails. There'd be
Oh yeah,
phone
yeah.
calls,
No,
there'd be kids'
that's my
problems.
life. I totally
Yeah,
know
so
it.
you're kind of sitting in that space at the moment, but like you just said, it's different when you're in that space and you're creating it, and you could take your foot off the gas, but you're actually in control.
Absolutely, totally different because and I think that's one of the key pieces of control, right? I mean, so much of it when people are asked, "Are you happy with the job that you're in?" It's
Mm,
control. It's like how much control do you have over your job, your role, what you're doing? That's a huge
yeah,
factor. So the less control that you have over what you can do, you may have a giant list of things to do, but if those are assigned to you by somebody else, it's completely different from the giant list of things to do. I'll take a list 200 times the size if I wrote it, as opposed to
yeah,
what I'm getting from other people.
yeah. I mean, the interesting thing with teaching and what I did is that there's quite a lot of autonomy as well. Obviously, there are the expectations and the directives and whatever's going on within the school,
Sure.
what are the focuses that they've got things on, the outcomes that they're looking for. But there's a lot of autonomy within that space, and I was also able to create programs for the kids. I wrote a curriculum because of the students that weren't engaging with languages, so I wrote a whole new subject called global studies.
Nice.
And I wrote the whole curriculum, and it was really, I loved it actually. And the kids really got engaged with it because it was something different. And at the beginning of every lesson, they would have to say the roll call in a language that I'd like kind of have up on the board. So they would learn about culture, and then they would learn to say they'd have to say yes or no in the language or whatever it was here,
Nice.
so it was engaging in lots of different ways. So there was autonomy in it. But ultimately in the end there are a lot of boxes that you tick in the end. There's a lot of
Right.
boxes that you
Right.
so
So what made you, so these things occurred, and then all of a sudden you decided you wanted to jump into a new life. What direction did you want to go in?
I really I just wanted to upend it all. I just
So
I
instead of
like
a
chapters.
direction,
I like
you wanted
change.
to run, you wanted to, instead of going towards something, you were going away from something. So you were
No, I
flipping the
don't
script.
think I was
No.
I wasn't running away from anything. Definitely not. I
No, no, no.
was
I'm not suggesting you're running. I'm just saying it's
no.
like you were doing the op or something different from what you did before. It's like
It
you
was
weren't
about
necessarily
change.
right,
It was about self-growth. It was
right.
about finding a new direction. It was about finding me because I'd kind of found, and that's in midlife, menopause, I think for women, everything changes and you know who you are as a woman, your body changes as a woman, your role as a woman starts to shift.
Hmm.
And you start to think about, well, okay, what do I want now? And actually, I do want something different. And that's what a lot of it, that was a lot of the driving force. There were other factors around it,
Right.
but it was really about this is my chance now to do something different. And I want to do it now because this is the point to do it. I'm a real a believer, I'm a real this is it. This is the chance.
Hmm.
Midlife is the point. And that's why,
Right.
the idea of 50 plus nomads, this is it. You don't know how
Yeah.
long you got left. Do something that's going to really make your heart sing, whatever
Yeah.
that is, and you can set off. People say, like you just said, people have have you got a plan? Like, did you have a plan when you left? And I was like, no, not really. I had a few flights booked, but I did.
You don't
I'd saved
necessarily
some
need to have a
money.
plan.
Yeah, I like that. Some people are really quite regimented, but I don't know where I'm going to be in August. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
All I know, and I think that's the other side of it, is that I've been able to come back to me and to the present instead of looking forward, constantly looking forward. I'm just kind of sitting here and I'm in a place of acceptance of where I am, and I'm sitting in Oman. If you just said to me 18 months ago, you're going to be in Oman, you're going to be there for a couple of months, you're going to be building a business, I'd have been like, oh, yeah, okay. I wouldn't have been that shocked, but I'd have been like, okay, I like that. So I
Yeah.
didn't leave with a plan. It was a case of I want something new and something different. It's a new chapter. It's a new beginning, a
Yeah.
new midlife chapter, something different. I don't know what it's going to be. And I'm okay with that because I'd been
Yeah.
going around, I'd lived in my house, had the job, same drive every day, had my friends. I'd done traveling and things like that as well. But that was the longest I'd ever been stable since I was 18,
Mm.
since I left my parents' home. That was like a 9 year period of complete stability, which was very unusual for me. So it was time for change.
Right.
Was I
Did you find
scared? No.
did you find that people around you were like freaked out by you're doing this? Like, because everyone's expecting you to be the way you are, and now you're like doing something completely different, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, what's happened to her? She's completely different." Did you ever get that?
I don't think so. I think
Mm.
people know me, my friends and the people, my colleagues and my family, they know that I like to change things. They
Right.
know that I like to seek difference, that I like
Mm.
to seek challenges, that I like to seek experience, the experiences of something different, particularly traveling and being in another culture and living in another country. It's always been something. So I don't think people were surprised. I guess there's that question of, for some people, it was like, how are you gonna what are you gonna do to make money?
Right.
You know, that's the biggest one. And I'm just like, well, I'm smart. I've always made money. I've always managed to live. I'm okay. I'll be okay. I can
Yeah.
work. I'll find work along my way, and I'll work my way through it. Whereas for many people, and so they would say, the one that people have always said in my life consistently is, "Oh, you're so brave." But I don't
Mm.
see it as brave. I just see it as maybe it's just stepping into your fears. I don't know if that's bravery. I'm not sure. It's stepping into your fears or challenging yourself,
Mm,
like if I get bored, then I want to shake things up. I'm not willing to sit in that space and just continue going round on the hamster wheel just because it's
right,
safe and it's secure.
right.
It
So
doesn't, it bores me.
you've always been like that. That's part of your
Always,
personality. So they don't have
always
to go,
from
oh, Joanna's doing something crazy.
no,
This is
it
normal for
doesn't
me.
surprise. Exactly. It for people around me, they'll just go, oh yeah, that's Joe. That's kind of what she does. It
Yeah,
doesn't really shock people if they know me. But for other people, if they don't know me or they've met me and I tell them a little bit of my story, they're always a little bit kind of taken aback that I've jumped into random opportunities when maybe it wasn't the best point at that moment. But life is short, isn't it?
yeah,
Life is
exactly.
to challenge
So speaking of
yourself
that,
and
do you
learn.
feel like you've had some FOMO, like there's things that you wanted to do, but you haven't been able to do it because you were sort of tied down doing what you were doing?
One of my strongest beliefs is that I don't have any regrets. I don't
Mm,
regret anything because everything that I have experienced has taught me a lesson. And if I
mm,
get taught a lesson, then I learn something from it to then move forward with that. So I don't believe in regrets. Fear of missing out, it's an interesting one. I think I always felt like for a long, long, long time, I always felt like I had that itchy feet. It was that constant feeling of
mm,
I need to move. I need to change my environment. I need to go here. I need to go there. It was a very powerful feeling from a really, really young age, from the age of
right.
14.
Wow.
From the age of 14, I wanted to travel. That was it. It was, these this really strong, powerful feeling. And I've kind of reflected back on it. Um, I have a clear memory of going to France when I was 11 with the school and standing in the boulangerie and ordering using my French. That's a really clear memory for me.
Mm.
And then we had a school trip when I was 14 and we went on a cruise. It was as kids from all over the world. There was Americans and
Wow.
Canadians.
That
It
would
was
have been
amazing. It was like
fantastic. I love that.
1984, and we were all on this cruise ship in the Mediterranean and we went Greece, Crete, then we went over to Jerusalem and then we went over to Italy.
Wow,
And
what
I
an
think
amazing experience.
and I
Fantastic.
think that was also had a fundamental impact on me. And wow, oh my goodness, look what's out there. Look what's in the world. Look what you can go and see. Look what you can go and find out and meet people and different foods and smells. And I think that feeling didn't leave me of, I want to go there, I want to go there. Didn't leave me for a long, long time. The only time it actually kind of eased off was when I had my son. When
Mm,
I had my son, I was able to kind of ground down into that experience because he became my focus. So
right.
I was then happy and settled to be in that space because he was my focus. But as soon as he was kind of like 12, 13, I took him, he's traveled a lot as well. We took him to Sumatra and Myanmar when he was 6. So
Nice.
he's had some crazy experience as well. So he's done a lot of traveling. I took him to India when he was 14. That was just before COVID. So I did have that period, but I was still doing trips and doing things. But then as my son started to grow older, and I knew he was getting to sort of 15, 16, and I could feel the change starting to kick in me again. And I could
Mm.
feel that yeah, I can't explain what it is. It's a really strong feeling within me. I don't know if I was a gypsy in a former life or something. I'm not sure.
You're a
But it's
nomad. It's like the nomadism is in your blood. And you sort of
yeah,
held it down for a bit. And now it's back to fruition because you've got all your other responsibilities have slowed down. So it's great.
yeah. It's a powerful feeling that sometimes I used to have to battle with it, especially, when Oliver came along. The first part of it, I was really busy with him. And then there was this little period again where it kind of came up, and I was like, well, I can't really do much with it. And I found a way to kind of work through it. And it eased off, but then it's come back. And I'm back in that space again, like when I left last year, when I left Australia, or like 18 months ago, I traveled really fast for like
Mm.
7 months. And it was because it was just like I wanted to experience it all. Like I just wanted to do it. I
It
just
was
wanted
like a
to,
kickstart. It was like a
yeah.
kickstart. You wanted to get back right back into it again. And so you didn't stay in one place for a long time. You just jumped around a lot.
No, I kept moving, I just was like, I left, I went Vietnam, India, Oman, Sri Lanka, Malaysia,
Wow.
Borneo, Korea, Japan, and then I was back to Vietnam, Thailand, and then Turkey, Oman
Wow.
again.
In the span of how
Yeah,
long? How long was that?
that was within 7 months.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I was like, I did 28 flights, I think it was. 28 flights. It was
What
I
made you feel like you wanted to keep moving? Is it just because you wanted to just get back into it or?
no, I don't know what it was. I think I had a lot of personal stuff to work through.
Mm,
I think it was a lot of personal stuff to work through because there had been so much change in my life. And this shift that I've experienced through menopause and midlife and my son leaving home, and this space opening up and the different experiences that had happened in those last 5 years prior. And there was a PTSD incident as well that happened to do
mm,
with my job. And I just felt like I had a lot of stuff to work through. I'd become a single mum not long after I'd emigrated to Australia.
hmm.
And I'd just been into looking after my son and working hard and paying the bills. And, it
Right.
was a massive responsibility.
You're
So
focusing
there
on the
was,
responsibilities of life. I totally get
yeah,
it.
exactly. I was wrapped up in it and happy to do it. And happy, completely happy to do it. And I was satisfied. I was happy with my life. I was happy with doing what I was doing and raising my son. Um, but when I left and went traveling, I think I had a lot of stuff to process. And I do feel like there was a real, I've got to get it into me now. It was like gorging on food almost. That's the only way
You've
I
been
can think
starving.
of
You've been
explaining.
starving all those years, and then all of a sudden, here's a smorgasbord in front of you, and you're like, okay,
It was very
love it.
much like that. It was like no one really knew where I was at any point in time because I was so fast. I was just like packing it in and I'd get somewhere and I'd be like, this is not for me. The energy's not right. This is not
Right.
what I want to be doing. I
Oh,
need
so
more
you were
nature.
moving because you weren't finding you weren't in the right place. So you
Yeah.
kept moving to see if you could find the next place.
So
Oh, I
I
love
would
that.
move. I would move as I would kind of get somewhere and I'd be like, okay, this is kind of where I want to be. So I'll sit here in this space for a little while. But it was a lot of movement. It was,
Mm,
every 2 or 3 days I was constant. I did a retreat in the middle of it in Sri Lanka, which was amazing. And I really enjoyed that. It was just total calmness for
mm.
6 days, no
Did you document
phones.
any of this, or was it just you just wanted to feel it?
I no, I have, but I put a lot of it up on my social media. So there's lots of like little videos and reels and things as I was going through it, and I was kind of like recording it, and that's where
Nice.
I'm sitting with it now. Like I'm kind of reflecting back on it, and I'm kind of writing little mini blogs. So that's where I'm at now. So this is all kind of feeding into where I've come to. But so after that, then I've started to slow down. So I was in the UK because my parents are in the UK. Things started to slow down, and then I left there and went to Portugal and I was there for a month with a friend. And then I traveled through Barcelona and Rome and came back to Oman for 2 months because my sister was here.
Mhm.
So I was here for another couple of months. Really like Oman. It's an amazing space. I think I put a post up somewhere the other day about if as a digital nomad, it's a really good place to come and be. It's
I've heard that.
beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's an amazing space. The people here are so wonderfully kind and warm and open. Um, it's conservative a little bit where I am in Salalah, but there's a great expat community here. There are nomads around. There are there's teachers here, so there's a good expat community, and you can rent properties here for a decent price and have a car. And there's other opportunities here in different ways. So it's a good space for a digital nomad, I feel, and because of where it sits, it's close. It's like 6 hours into London and
Hmm.
6 hours to Bangkok.
Oh, very
So
nice.
it's a
But
good kind of like stopping point.
it's not too expensive to live there.
No, food's really cheap. And there's a lot of South Asians that live here, lots of Indians, Keralans, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans. So there's lots of Indian food, like
Mm,
Sri Lankan food, which I love.
I
So
love that.
it's amazing. And there's the local market I love here, the local Salala market in the town, in the city here. So I go there every week and it's all lovely, fresh fruit and veg. And it's for about 10 euros. I don't know what that is in US dollars. 10. I'll come out with 2, 3 big bags of tropical fruit and veg
Oh,
and,
fantastic.
fresh coconut and prawns. And it's amazing, so you can live cheaply here and you can get decent accommodation for a decent price. So I think for a digital nomad, it's a good space.
Hmm.
So it's been a good place to be and work. So from here, I've slowed down a lot now. I've anchored down a lot more. So it's now moving into looking at my business and what is my business. Like I'm concentrating on that, and it's to do with travel and movement for midlife women. Travel is transformational for
Mm,
women in midlife, like to kind of recalibrate and start the new chapter. I see travel really as a rite of passage for men and women. I think it's if you didn't get to do it, that idea of backpacking as a rite of passage when you were 18 or 19, I didn't really
yeah,
buy into that.
I
But
wish I had a chance to do that. And it
but
would
I
have been
see it
fun.
now. I think
Hmm.
now it's really important, especially I think we had a discussion about the idea of retirement. And I think that idea of retirement is outdated. Where we talked about education and that educational model, I think retirement is also outdated.
Oh,
I think it's
absolutely.
gone.
Absolutely.
You
I
know,
don't think
you
anybody's going to be doing it anymore. You're just going to be shifting your life into a different focus. And you're not going to have that same old, here's your gold watch. They don't even they give you those anymore, right? Like, you just shift
no.
into a different model. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
exactly
buy
right.
into the idea of you work your whole life and when the government says you can retire at 67, you can retire and have
Yeah.
a pension, and then what? And then what are you going
And
to do? You
nowadays
know
that's a
what?
moving target too. They keep changing that. So
That's right.
you got to take your life into your own hands and you run your own life. And so
That's the
speaking of,
key. That's the key.
yeah,
It's not waiting for someone else to tell you what to do or someone telling you how to do it or thinking that everyone's going to provide for you because you are your own source of everything. You're your own source of
absolutely.
happiness. You're your own source of
Absolutely.
wealth. You are the source for everything. Source of love. If you want love, you seek yourself. You've got to love yourself. So the idea that this government or whatever it is going to give you all of that, it's a what do they call it? Not is it a false flag? It's a nothingness.
Yeah.
It's not a truism. It's false.
Yeah.
It's
But for some people, that's kind of like an awesome responsibility. They think, oh my God, you mean I have to do all this for myself? I have to
yeah,
run
that's
my own
right.
life? And they're like, yes, yes, you do.
Yeah,
That is the
that's
way
where
it is.
that's it. You have to step up for yourself because no one else
Exactly.
is going to do that for you, unless you're really very lucky and, there's a lot of money around you or you've got, people that someone's going to be there all the time to keep helping you. It's not like that
Yeah,
for most of us. That's it. You got to put your trust in yourself. And that's where
absolutely.
movement and traveling gives you that self-trust.
Absolutely.
Because
So,
if you can navigate through a different country and on a train and through another language and find some food or you get really sick and you lay in a bed, you've got all of the skills. You've just built all of the skills you need to be successful in whatever it is that you want to turn your attention to.
absolutely right.
So
Absolutely right.
yeah.
So speaking of money, you mentioned money earlier. I was like, did you sort of build up a fund ahead of leaving, or did you figure, oh, I'm just going to go and we'll figure it out on the way?
No, so for the last 6 months, I saved a lot of money. not a lot of money. I saved some money and then I sold my car.
Right.
And I sold a lot of the possessions that you gather over time.
Right.
You
The
know, I
longer you
arrived
stay
in
in one
Aus
place, the more stuff you just happen to have. And then yeah, at the end of it, it's kind of like, why did I buy all this? Why do I really need this?
It's so interesting
Crazy.
when you kind of I arrived in Australia with 7 boxes. That was
Hmm.
it. And when I
Wow.
just left now,
I
I had a whole
applaud you.
house.
I wish I could do that. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
I
This
love it.
year
It's
is
actually
strange
really
year for
cathartic.
us. We're getting rid of stuff. We're absolutely getting rid of stuff. If I could get down to 7 boxes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah.
It's attachment. We talked about philosophy. For
Yep.
me, the Buddha's teaching of non-attachment is a powerful teaching of not being
Mm,
attached to anything. I struggled with it when I was younger. The idea of how could you not be attached to your loved ones? That was something. But
yeah.
as I've got older, I've got a better, deeper understanding of what it is that he was trying to help people to understand. But the attachment to things is not going to bring you any
Yeah.
happiness. Maybe for a little while, it's a fleeting happiness, but I think stepping into a life where you leave everything behind, it's like almost a release and a relief.
Mm. Well,
It's like,
living in such a materialistic world. It's always like, more, 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 more. And it's not something we need. It doesn't help us spiritually. It doesn't help us mentally. It just sort of like it's almost like an anchor pulling you down and holding you back.
it does pull you down and it does hold you back because the more you have, the more you own, the more credit you have, the more, it's like a web. It's a
Yeah.
web that is spun around you. I mean, that's the capitalist system, isn't it? And especially credit, you get caught in that web and the idea that you're fed of success, you're successful if you have this or that or the car or the holiday, it's absolute rubbish. It's
Yeah.
meaningless, really.
Hmm.
It's meaningless because it's not the measure of the person. For me, the measure of the person is how kind are they? How much can they give? Are they empathetic? Not do they have the latest car of this type or do they have a big house? It doesn't mean anything. Some of the most warmest people I've met have nothing,
Yep.
but then also some of the most amazing people I've met have everything. So
Yeah.
it's not about the possessions, it's the person. It's
Exactly
who
right.
you are and how you carry yourself and everything, the words you say, the way you act, the way you interact with people, your intention behind everything. Yeah, that's what gives you meaning. It's not the stuff. So packing that up was so cathartic. I have a
Yeah.
video of the last night in my house before I left because I've rented the property out. So I still have
Hmm.
the property.
Hmm.
Um, but the attachment to it is really interesting because the attachment that I did have to the house, because my son and my life and everything was in it, I don't have that attachment any longer.
Mm.
It's
But it
in
must have
fact,
been difficult though when we were leaving at the end there. I mean, I get
well, it's
attached to
interesting
like
when you watch the
furniture
video.
that we've had in the front. Like for example, the other day we were getting rid of an old dining room table that we'd all sat around for 15
Yeah,
years, right? And I'm
yeah,
like, I was looking at the table. I'm like, there's so many memories that we made around that
yeah,
table, and now it's heading to Goodwill. And I'm like, I had a moment where I was
yeah.
like emotional over it, and now it's like it's okay, it's gone. But I had the moment and I needed to have it, but
Yeah.
I'm not
And that's
attached
a
to the
beautiful
table.
that's a
Yeah,
beautiful part of it. It is really it's
yeah,
just a thing. It's you're projecting onto the object the meaning.
exactly,
The
exactly.
meaning's still there. The meaning still sits with you. So the table's gone, but the table will now go on to another family or someone somewhere, and they'll be, that's it, I'm the midlife butterfly. That's
Like a
who I am.
butterfly.
Yeah. Like you come out of your cocoon, you spread your wings and you fly and you start again. You start this new process. But the videos shows me sitting in my bedroom. I just had the mattress and a backpack in the corner of the room. And I'd
Oh,
stripped the
fantastic.
house down, cleaned it. Everything was packed up in storage. And I'm just sitting there and I talk about how cathartic it had been
Mm,
packing, selling, getting rid of, and going through emotions, going through sadness, going through joy, having tears, you know, like letting go of it was a huge process that I went through. And I think if you're going to go into nomad life and you're going to do that, that is one of those, it's a really healthy process that you go through. It's not easy, I guess, in some ways. But yeah, that last night I was ready to go. I was
Mm,
kind of like reflecting. And then at the end of the conversation, I just like look at the camera and I'm just like, this butterfly's ready to go. She's about to
nice.
spread her wings, you know, and there's this, and I could feel the excitement at that point because it wasn't until at that point I realized that it was about to happen. I'd packed up my whole life. I was leaving my job and I was leaving my life that I'd been living for 9 years, you know.
So you didn't
No
feel
regret.
worry. You weren't in, there was no trepidation. You were excited because
Yeah,
you were going to start a new life.
yeah. Just going
I
to
love
step
it.
into it and be brave and just and trust because I trust myself. I
Mm,
trust myself. I've always managed to be okay. You know, I've always made sure that I'm okay. I've always been able to feed myself food and house myself. So I don't have any doubt. You know, I think being a single mum or being a single person, I don't know, that's not for me. I had my back and emigrating and living on my own. And that's another part of the travel life is you learn that you've got your own back, that you've got yourself.
well, if you think about
You-
it, I mean, we got to this age because we have been able to take care of ourselves, right? I mean, we were at some point we were on our own and we were alone and we were able to cook for ourselves and clean for ourselves and do all of these things on our own. So we're just getting back in touch with that ability that we all have anyway. So it's not something you need to learn. It's there. It's built in.
it's a reawakening of
Yeah,
things that you forget, you know,
exactly.
things. And it's also a reawakening of your true self again, that you can
Hmm.
go back into really all your hopes or dreams or aspirations that maybe you parked or you forgot about because you get caught up in becoming an adult, which is, you know, like when you take on the responsibilities of, you know, having a mortgage or having children or, you know,
Yeah, all the
that's
things
what
that tie
happens.
you
That
down.
tends to be, yeah, but it's not that it, I don't know if it slows you down. It's just you have your responsibilities are for what's going on around you. You know, it's
Yeah.
not such you don't have as much freedom in that sense that you can just hop around. Some people do, and that well,
But it's
this
by
is where we're at
choice,
now.
right? I mean, you decided to do that because you could. I mean, as parents, you know, it's sort of like you have a small a child, you bring it into the world, and you have a responsibility. So
Yeah,
everything else gets put on hold, and you parent, right? And then
yeah,
once they get to the point where they're grown adults, you get okay. Now I don't need to parent. I still, of course, you're always parenting, right? Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Like, but their need for parenting reduces, and you go, okay, now that I have time to do everything else. So it's a choice that you make, and it's wonderful, I think.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's been a beautiful experience. Uh, how quickly it passes is, I
Ah,
think, surprised me.
tell me about it.
You know, that really has shocked me actually, because all I remember is at the very beginning when my son was young, you kind of find yourself thinking, oh, when he gets to this age, it's going to be a bit easier because they can do this and that, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're 18 and then you go, oh, hang on, hold up. That was just I can't remember what happened, you know, and it becomes a blur almost because you've
Oh yeah.
done so much, you know, because you're so in it, you know, you're so in it. Yeah, it's yeah, you know, what an amazing life. I
Oh,
feel very
it's
thankful for my life and for everything that I've experienced, you know, and there's good
wonderful.
and bad in it, but it's a beautiful life, and that's
Mm,
really one, you know, and traveling and being able to move around is just brings, yeah, it just is the icing on the cake for me.
fantastic. So I hate to go to the tactical stuff because I love it. So when you were thinking about, so you got you got some money saved up, and then
Yeah.
have you thought about what you're going to be doing for additional income as you go? I mean, do you have like a year, 2 year? How much do you have saved up?
So so now I'm starting to run low on funds.
Mm,
I can go back to work. I can go
hmm.
back to my other job. So that's okay. Being a teacher, you know, you can always go back and
Oh,
supply
sure.
work
I
and
mean,
things
and
like
you probably work anywhere, really, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
basically
can
based on your.
do. I can
Mhm.
do. And I could look into international schools and things like that, but it doesn't feed my soul anymore.
Mm. Mhm.
And I want to be doing something that feeds my soul. So that's why I've kind of um so the idea that I had of the midlife butterfly, that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm creating that. And the idea is to create courses and coaching, travel coaching for women in midlife to use travel as a way to kickstart and find who they are, get in touch with themselves again. So I'm building that at the moment. Um, and that will bring in an income at some point. And I'll be okay. If it means that I have to go back to work, that's okay. So the funds will last a bit longer. Um, but I've been very fortuitous in some of the accommodation that I've had as well. But at the end of the day, I can go back to India or Thailand or Sri Lanka and live quite cheaply there
Mhm.
if I need to, and I'd be more than happy to do that. So that's another part of the equation. So I can keep going. So I had a bank of money. The money is now, the little pot is like kind of shrinking, and that's why now I'm
They,
kind of
they tend to
building.
do that, don't you? Don't they? If you don't refill them regularly.
No, no. So that's where I'm at. I'm in that process now of starting to do. And I guess the idea of being a digital nomad, that's kind of like where I'm at now. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I want. This is the life that I want. Let's start learning. So I'm on
Yeah,
a massive
fantastic.
learning curve at the moment, which I love. I love to learn, and I think that's really important. You should always be learning. I feel you should always be
Oh, me
seeking
too.
knowledge and
I'm never
learning.
going to stop learning. Never going to stop. So what
No,
about let me ask you about a couple of other things like health and wellness. I mean, do you have healthcare plans or how do you handle that? I mean, unfortunately, as you get
as in
older,
insurance.
yeah, well, any kind of
So
medical.
I had when I left on the first journey, I had health insurance. And then when I got into the UK, because I have a UK passport, I'm okay for health insurance there because you
Mhm.
have the NHS. But then when I was back into Europe, I just took on health insurance policies again as well. I'm touch wood. I'm quite fit. I do yoga. I go to the gym. I walk. I eat well. So I'm pretty focused on making sure that my body is in as good shape as I can. I don't eat too much rubbish, but things like a couple of things that have happened during the time that I've been away is I cut my foot open. Don't know
Ooh,
how it happened. When I was in Sri Lanka, I got out of the
that's happened to me
rickshaw.
much a couple of times as well. Crazy.
How it happened, I've got no idea. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I was like, why is my shoe wet? And I looked down, there was just a big puddle of blood. I'm like, oh my God. And it wasn't until I looked at my foot, I was like, oh, that's quite a deep cut. So I ended up in the hospital. But in Sri Lanka, I didn't even use my insurance, to be honest with you. I went in, they gave me like 4 injections, they stitched me up, and it cost like $50.
Yeah, so that's the thing that people don't understand in other
Yeah,
countries. That some of these
yeah.
countries, the healthcare really is very inexpensive. So you don't really need that high cost healthcare plans or insurance,
No,
right?
that's right. And I had a mole that appeared, a suspicious mole, and that was when I was in India. That I went and had that removed, and I think that cost me about $70. A great dermatologist, it was in and out,
Here
but
it
she
would
was
be
amazing.
$7,000.
I know,
Unbelievable. Well, not here.
I
I'm in
know.
Greece right now. I don't know how much it would cost in Greece, but in the States, it would be a ridiculous amount. It would be
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous amount.
Yeah. So I've had that, but things like dentist, like Asia's really good for the dentist. Like when I was in Thailand last time, I was at Thailand about 8 months ago, had all my teeth cleaned and checked and things like that. So I'll go back to Thailand. So yeah, I kind of in Asia is a really good place. If you're in and around Asia, the healthcare is accessible, like
Hmm.
financially. But I always have health insurance just in case. So that's one side of it. Yeah. So there's keeping healthy, but also making sure that you've got the insurance.
Is there any issues with only being an English speaker, say? I mean, do you speak Thai or any of those other languages?
Speak a little bit of Thai, but you don't need to. But Thailand is so set up for tourism. They
Okay.
have a big healthcare system there as well. So Thailand really isn't a worry with the language. It's only if you're going to go really provincial that you might have a struggle with language. But Thailand, all through Asia, I don't think you have any worries with language. Japan now. there's a lot more English around. I suppose Tokyo, there's more English. You might struggle with language in Japan. China would be a different ball game. They've got good healthcare there, but you would definitely need some sort of translation there because
Right.
it's a struggle there. I found us like I went there with I went there with my education department, and I took a group tour there. I took students, and they have good healthcare there, but it's obviously you're going to have to pay for it as well. But
Right.
yeah, no, Asia's good for that. I don't really know about Central and South America. The other place is Europe. You're going to have insurance for Europe. If you're going to travel into Europe and you're going to be around Europe, you need healthcare. Look, I'll be honest with you. When I was younger, I didn't think about it. I never
Mm.
traveled
Well, we
there.
don't, do we? When we're younger, we're like, we're invincible. Nothing will happen to us.
Absolutely. You don't think about anything like that, you know? It's just
Nope.
like you doing bus journeys up the side of
Yep.
mountains, you know, and
Yeah.
the bus is hanging off of the edge, you know, things like that, you know, and you don't think about
You're like,
anything.
instead of, you're not freaking out. You're like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas now you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. What happens if so you start kind of like your risk assessment is a lot stronger at this age for sure. You know, I like, oh, that looks a bit dodgy. I'm not gonna kind of risk that. I'm definitely much more on that side now. But that's really important, actually. I think keeping fit is fundamental
Yeah.
to if you're going to be moving around, especially when you go to different types, even things sounds silly, but I had a friend who slipped over on a floor that had been over polished in Bali,
Mm,
an
mm.
older friend of mine, and that screwed her knee up. You know, even Rome, all the cobbled streets, like
Oh,
as you
yeah.
get
It's
older, your feet are
treacherous.
a little bit more unstable, steps. If you want to be moving around and traveling once you get past a certain age, you've got to be mobile. So you've got to be making sure that you're doing muscle, you're going to the gym and you're doing weights and things like that,
Yeah.
because you need strong muscles, especially
Yeah.
in your legs and your hips and things like that, your knees. So I think that's really important as a nomad. It's something that you've got to really think about. I think that's really important. Maybe somebody
No, I
else
agree.
wouldn't.
I agree with you. I mean, we all live these sedentary lives when we have desk jobs. And,
Yeah,
it's like we're kind of unfit to be nomads at the time because there's just so much you have to deal with in the physical world that you
yeah.
weren't dealing with when you were sedentary, and you need to get yourself back up to speed again to be able to deal with those things. So I
Yeah,
totally
I think it's
understand.
really
Yeah.
important. Yeah, health is really important. If you want to move around and you're going to be in different places with different environments, different terrains, because they're not going to look like the asphalt road where you come from, depending on where you are. It's
Yeah.
just going to be different types of things that you need to make sure that you've got the physical capabilities. As you get older, you just got to keep stronger,
Yeah.
and going to the gym or doing some kind of exercise like that, like weight resistance, really important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And are there any sort of tools or technologies that you use, or you just said you just have a laptop? Are you just anything special that you use
For
for anything,
work,
like for your content creation, I guess?
I use my iPhone. That's
Hmm.
it, really. It's my iPhone. I've got the laptop now. I've got the microphone. I've got the stand. That's really good to help like record content, or if I'm speaking to the camera, if I'm having meetings, because I seem to be having a lot of connecting with a lot of people globally as well now. So
Nice.
you have like you're having a lot of conversations with people, so you need to have something to make sure that it's comfortable. Yeah, so that's really it. Not too much, apart from your adapter plugs, that's super important, and about 10 different like USB charger type things, for your AirPods and
It
then your
fills up
power
my
pack.
entire carry-on bag, all these chargers and cables.
Power pack. I think that's one thing that people might forget about as well, or might not realize. A power pack's a really good thing, especially if you're going to be shooting content. That was one of the things I realized last year when I started moving, was that the phone drains really quickly if you're out of the
Mm,
house and you're
very much
taking
so.
photos or videos. So yeah, having a power pack. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of electrical equipment, and maybe
Do
I'm
you
missing something, but I don't think so.
do you have any issues with internet connectivity and things like that, or have you had?
Haven't really had any problems with interconnectivity. Not No, I mean, here sometimes in Oman it can cut out, and I've noticed on certain nights when the demand is heavy, the connection is not as good. But generally, wherever I've been and wherever I've been traveling around, even some locations where you wouldn't think you'd have Wi-Fi, I've had absolutely no issues, really.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, there's not been
So
anywhere.
so it's time to wrap things up. So this has been fantastic. I love talking to you. We should do this again. This is
Yeah,
too
I
much to
love it.
go
It's so
over.
good.
Do you have any sort of final words for an aspiring nomad into like what they need to do to get into the life? Something you could
Um,
share?
if you're sitting there thinking about whether this is something that you should do or whether, really you should just keep on going on what you're at, just think about how many summers you've got left in your life.
Mm.
You know, life is short, and be brave, step into your fears and just go for it. Because what's the worst that can happen, really? I mean, you just go back to your life. Because usually, I think if you set things up in a way that you can return, maybe that's a safety net for someone who's really not quite sure. You can just
Right.
ditch it and go, because you can always get it when you come back. It's very quick to gather material possessions, but
Exactly.
get your ducks in a row. Get your ducks in a row. Know what you want to do, kind of where you have a loose plan, have money behind you, have your insurance, and just go for it, because life is short. Don't, otherwise, in 5 years' time, you might think, oh, I should have done it. I should have
Yeah.
done it. Why
It's
didn't I
like
do
that
it then?
proverb, right? When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago or today, right?
Do it. Do it. If you're sitting there now and you're watching this and you're thinking, I want to do it, but I'm scared, should I do it? Or the people are going to judge me, or, am I tapping out? Who cares? This is it.
Mhm.
This is your life. Get out there and enjoy it. Enjoy every moment of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So somebody wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way?
So they can go to the website. It's midlifebutterflies.com, or they
Hmm.
can find me on Facebook, Joanna Fulmer, or they can go on to Instagram, the Midlife Butterfly. So yeah, there's a few different places that you can find me and get in contact.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put everything in the show notes so people can go directly to the link. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Super. Thank you.
It's
Thank you
fantastic
so much.
talking with you. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained, I thrive, I thrive. Oh, I thrive, I thrive, I thrive. I thrive, I thrive, I thrive.